Hey guys, it's Chris, you're seeing here back from CNH Smallings again for another informative quickie video. This one deals mainly with damage if you hit a stump, pole, rock, stone, or any type of something that's sticking out of the ground with your lawnmower, and the damage that can basically result from it for that. And what I have in front of me right here is actually a flywheel off a Briggs Stratton. It's about I call it a 3 horsepower classic Briggs because it's the classic design engine here. I'll even show you what the machine or the flywheel was, what was actually off of previously for that. Right over here, you can see that right there. It's an MTD, 20-inch, non-adjustable deck on it. This is basically your cheap and dirty, or as I call it, the everyday man, Mon Valley mentality's typical lawnmower around this area. Unfortunately, we get a lot of these machines over here per week over here, and they're basically an absolute cheap, if you can call it that. I'd say about 10 years ago, they were actually selling these things at Walmart for about 89, 99 bucks, but the price has gone up to about 150 bucks now because of inflation and shit like that. So they're no longer more than 89 bucks as they were about 10 or 15 years back, but they're an extremely cheap lawnmower to say the least that are for that. You have no adjustments on anything on or for that, and because of that, they're extremely cheap to buy. And if something catastrophic does happen to it, like a flywheel, sometimes it might not be worth actually repairing it. So we had a guy drop it off anyway, and he wanted to spend the coin over here to actually have his machine repaired. And we put another flywheel on it. We actually had about, I normally stock used flywheels off other jobs over here, and we gave the guy a deal on her for the actual job, and put another good condition flywheel that wasn't damaged in any way on her for that. And the result, as I said before, if you have hitting something out in your driveway or something out in your yard, anywhere that'll upset your actual blade underneath there and put some kind of a vibration through the crank, you run a risk of damaging your flywheel. As you see right here, you see the keys. The keys actually broke in 2 separate pieces right there for that. Broken in 2 separate pieces. It basically knocked the timing out about at least a ½ an inch on the actual crank on the top of it. You can actually see it up there. It moved over from this position right here. Basically, it moved all the way over to right about here. So whenever we attempted to start it over here, because the guy was originally claiming the rope was broke, and he said the thing kept on kicking back or it wouldn't start at all for him. So he brought it over to us, and we checked it out over here, and he needed a new flywheel. And plus, you can actually see the flywheel has a crack going from the actual key area all the way probably in the back over here. It's going right down the outer portion of the actual casting right here. You can see it right down through here. You get a big crack running right through. It's probably about 3/4 of an inch right on the inside of this angle piece, plus it's cracked on the inside right here, right on that specific piece as well too. The back side, it's pretty fucked up on the back as well too, down inside the keyway right there. Pardon my language, but that's basically what it is. I'd better tell you the truth and run the line to you about it. It's all scraped up down inside down there. So the key was definitely broke. As I said before, the key's completely snapped in 2 pieces, and it damaged the flywheel as well too, because these things are only cast aluminum. They're not any high-grade steel or cast iron or nothing like that. It's basically cheap aluminum out there for that. And your key is also cheap aluminum, as what you see it right here. It's basically broken 2 pieces, as I mentioned before. And that's one reason why we always recommend to check your yard previous to actually cutting the grass, because if you have a small rock or something that can possibly damage your flywheel, your brake, anything on that's connected to your crank underneath there, because your blade stops at any sudden time, you know, it can turn your blade into a banana. It can make your crank on the bottom bent. You can go to the top of your engine, damage your flywheel, damage your keyway. And if you have a severe problem where it bent the crank down there, you're going to need a new engine out there for that. And simply because you do not want to check your yard prior to the cutting of your grass. So it's always recommended to do that previous to cutting your grass every time you do that, because you never know when something's going to be out in your yard or hit a stump or a rock or something out there, because some people out there, they go out and buy a new piece of property, and they don't actually check it out. Then they have a stump or a marked post where the property line is at, and they run completely over it and either break the blade, bend the crank up underneath there, or damage the flywheel on a machine. We had a guy here about 6 years ago. He had a Honda commercial. He lives right the road from me over here, and he called us up because he was out there cutting his grass, and unfortunately he did not see a pipe in his yard over there, and it stopped the blade dead cold. And when it did that, it basically broke the blade right where it bolts to the actual spindle assembly on the deck, and the blade flew across the yard, hit a tree about 50 yards over there, and basically stuck in a tree. And unfortunately, if that had happened to be a person, that person would have been dead, and their family would have sued them over the incident right there for that. And that's why it's always recommended to check your yard prior to cutting the grass. So that's my tip for today, guys. So if anybody has any questions, comments, whatnot about something like this, or if you had something similar to this, hard starting, pulling back, or kicking back in your hand, more than likely it'll probably be the flywheel right there, because it's damaged, and you get a big crack on the actual flywheel right where it has the actual timing key right there for that, guys. So I'll see you guys. Have a nice day.